All right, welcome into a special edition of the 2022 baseball show. I guess this isn't going to be an MLB Draft podcast, but we got my man Joe Drake, and we got a special guest, man. We got Jordan Shusterman, Cèspedes Family BBQ. What's going on, man?
Yes, I know I've declared myself #1 Mikey Romero fan. Maybe we can get into that at some point. But yeah, I hope to talk some draft with you guys. I mean, that's I know you guys have just been churning out so much draft stuff, and especially this time of year, I'm let's go. Like that month before college baseball, even more so now with the lockout. Like I'm diving all in on draft stuff. So, but yeah, I'm down to chat whatever you guys want.
Let's start there. Let's start with college ball. I've noticed, especially over the last couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years, your guys' account really has blown up in terms of amateur baseball, college baseball, bringing notoriety to these guys doing it for the love of the game. Jordan, how did that come about? Is this something that's just kind of evolved into your baseball fandom, or what was the avenue to where we are today?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so, Jake Mintz and I have been doing this weird Cèspedes Family BBQ thing for almost a decade now, which is ridiculous. Since we were seniors in high school is when we started it. And we've been very fortunate to have it take us in many different directions and get to, talk about baseball for a living. But in terms of the college stuff, I would say that, it's something we've always been interested in. I didn't play seriously past 15 years old. Jake played D3 ball, and Division III baseball is something that's very close to our heart. And I went to a D3 school. I did not play, but I was very close with a lot of the guys on the team. And Jake played for 4 years. And like the appreciation for small college ball while we were in school, and still, because we literally have a podcast just devoted to Division III baseball because we're psychotic. Like that should go to show you the degree to which we care and how much we just love this stuff, right? And that is kind of where we showcase the stuff that is getting the attention. But last couple of years, certainly as I've gotten more into the draft, in a more serious angle, just really understanding Division I baseball more, watching it every weekend, watching midweek games, understanding that there is so much to consume, there's so much to learn, and kind of just knowing all the different pockets of it. And to your point, yeah, I mean, we know that college baseball doesn't get the same national attention as college football and college basketball. And that's fine. I understand that we want it to be that, but what is true and has always been true. And you say oh, you guys have been playing, is that people eat it up. If you give people good college baseball highlights, they will lose their mind. Right.
Yeah.
And
they're
so
all over it.
That's the thing. And so for us, and the way that we've always viewed our account is just, here's cool baseball stuff. That literally doesn't matter what level it is. Like that, we can get into, talking about LIDOM and talking about Winter League, whatever. That's the whole premise. That is the most basic, elevator pitch of what it is that we do is just, we want to give you the baseball stuff that we like, and we know that you will like it. And people just don't necessarily know how easy it is to access, and that's fine. We will bring it to you.
Drake, let me ask one more question here before I pass it over to you. Jordan, 10 years, man, you guys have been running this account, and it seems like it's been a staple in the baseball community for just about the entire time. I mean, you guys have always been a really fun follow. It's never wavered. Can you kind of take me through the origins of the account, what your guys' original aspirations for the account were to be, and then most importantly, what was the moment? What was the tweet? What set it off, man?
So we've told some version of this story many times, but like I mentioned, it started in high school, senior year of high school. So it was not a plan. I was on Twitter, baseball Twitter, for the couple years before that. So I kind of knew the space, but that was me with, 5 followers. I was just around following the people that now I've been fortunate enough to become friends with some of these people, but it's just so there wasn't a plan because we were children, right? We didn't know what we were doing. And so the plan was, let's start a website. We're talking about baseball all the time. We're making jokes. Let's just write these down because it's funny to us. So it's we just want to be able to look back at our silly blog and be like, haha, look at this Photoshop we did, look at this, whatever. That's why we started a podcast. But then we realized, we could reach out to people and have people on and start making connections in the industry and start seeing, talk to different people in the game, whether it's minor league players, whether it's major league players, if we somehow managed to access them. It was all just literally just blind Twitter DMs, right? And now this is just how, because there's so many baseball podcasts now, but when we started the Barbacast, whatever, 10 years ago or 9 years ago, that's what it was. It was send DMs, say, hey, come on, like we're just trying to learn. We just want to have fun baseball conversations. We don't care how many people are listening. And so, but to your point, like, was there one moment? No, because we went to different schools. We were always shared the same account, and since it was joint, it was always just like, two different kind of personalities, and Jake was playing and me was doing it more from an analytical side, sort of, but like it was mostly just like, here's the stuff we like. We like baseball. Baseball's fun. We don't have to take things so seriously, because that was the other thing. If there was one guiding principle too, it was like, I'm not gonna out analyze XYZ. I can't. It would be a joke to think that I can. Now, I admire all the people that are writing in Fangraphs community posts, like, hell yeah, like, good for you. You guys are smarter and braver than I, right? To me, it was like, you know what? Like, let's just have a good time because that's what was still a game. And like, we kind of wanted to carry that. So once we got a following, it was more of just like, let's roll with this and just do that. Just have fun, show people why we love the game and that it's so pure and that we love every level of it. And we'll go from there. And from there, the one moment, again, there's a few things. Something that happened, I was actually just thinking about this recently. 2014 or 15, we probably have 5,000 followers, maybe less. I don't know. And we were on one of our road trips, because we were road tripping every summer, going to minor league games and whatever, and just seeing the country and getting out and seeing different baseball. And David Cohn, who just got announced to the Sunday Night Baseball broadcast, just randomly mentioned us on a Yankees broadcast for no reason. Like, it was like a lull in the game, and he's like, hey, talking to Michael K. He's like, you guys, you got to follow the Cèspedes Family BBQ guys. These guys are funny. And Michael K's like, what are you talking about? Like, what in the world, right? Like, what are you? I guess now's a good time to mention, right? Cèspedes BBQ, okay. Cèspedes, when he comes over from Cuba, he sends a 30-minute long video to everybody, and at the end, he's roasting a pig on a spit, and we're like, that's amazing. Billy Bean watched that and gave him $30 million, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the super fast version. But and everyone's tweeting at it's like, David Cohn just like mentioned, and like, we didn't even know he followed us. Like, we were just like, what? Like, what? And so that was like one example where we were like, okay, I guess we have something. But even before we graduated, we ended up graduating and working for MLB for a couple of years, and then we moved on to a couple other things recently. But yeah, but like, dude, it's crazy how many years it's been, because I'm turning 27 in March, and like I was so used to everyone just being like, oh, Jake and Jordan, they're like 15 years old, right? No, like, I guess not anymore. So anyway.
That's what makes your guys' shtick work, man. It's pure, and it is what it is. Like, you guys don't fumble because you're Cèspedes Family BBQ. It's Jake and Justin.
Yeah.
Jake and Jordan.
That's fine. You're not the first person to say that.
Yeah. There's too many J's, man. That's one thing that I would change about your guys' team.
Yeah, I know. It trust me, it's helped and hurt us many, many, many times over the years. So, but that's okay.
Yeah, man. So I'm originally from the Northeast, and growing up, there's a bunch of small schools up there, and now I live in Southwest Florida, and I live in Fort Myers, and there's a JUCO team here, so I can kind of relate to like really kind of getting into like the small school baseball, and going to a few JUCO games last year, and then they start up here in like 2 weeks. I'll be at a tournament, which will be really fun. So I've really started to dive into that and really start to enjoy like that smaller school baseball. Building on that, do you guys have teams for D? Like, I know you guys said you love D3. Do you have teams that you follow, and then just kind of throughout college ball, are you more of like following teams, or just kind of players and stuff?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, actually. So Jake played at Wash U in St. Louis, which has become one of the best programs in the country. I went to the College of Worcester in Ohio, so both Midwest. Worcester also a perennial top 25 team. Both of those programs have been to the College World Series, the D3 World Series in the last decade, and so. For me, like, my connection with D3 baseball was not just that Worcester was good, is that freshman year was matched. My roommate, just like random roommate, was on the baseball team. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, what, like, at that point, I didn't even care that much. I was just like, oh, like, that's cool. I'm living with a baseball player, but like, whatever. Yeah. Like, I wasn't paying that much attention. And he was like pretty good freshman year. And then sophomore year, he led the country in home runs. And I was like, oh, like, I should go to the games because you're like one of my best friends, and you're
seems like a big deal.
Like, it seems like a big deal. Shouts out Jamie Lackner, still one of my best friends. So that's when I got into Worcester baseball, and Jake, again, like his journey, because he was like terrible for the first 3 years, and then was like one of the best relievers in the country his senior year, which was like a very fun arc to follow. So obviously our two teams we follow, but since we've been doing the D3 pod over the last few years, like we've grown very fond of like very specific programs, and I could start naming them. Most people will have never heard of them. We all have our different corners of the world. In terms of the D1 ball and the stuff that people are used to, I'm watching everyone. I wouldn't say that I have a specific team that I have gravitated to more. Like I don't, again, like obviously I'm watching all the SEC games, and obviously like my younger brother is currently a student at University of Maryland. So I live in DC, and my brother is a student in Maryland. So, I've kind of grown to be watching them. I got to go see them a little bit last spring. So keep an eye on the the Big Ten schedule, since that's a little bit harder to watch than the SEC network, as you guys probably know. But so that a little bit, but no, I'm watching, I'm watching this, and obviously for draft purposes, I'm keeping an eye on, like I remember last spring, like watching a lot of South Alabama, right, for Ethan Wilson. Like that was one where it was like, okay, like let me tune in for the Ethan Wilson at bats, Gavin Williams, another one, right? Watching a lot of ECU. Those starts were a lot of fun. So, you just find it. And this is why I'm very fortunate to work, and I get to podcasts and write about baseball. So like, I get to spend my time doing this. And, especially for the draft stuff, like that's what I'm spending my free time doing, like that's where it's like, oh, I'm putting the extra work into the draft stuff, learning the stuff, making sure I know who I'm watching. So, but I wouldn't say I have like a favorite team. I would say in softball, I have some favorite teams, but nice. Which is why Mikey Romero, that's why I'm, shouts out to the Romero sisters, but yeah, so that's in general, I wouldn't say I have like a favorite. I'm just watching all of it.
We'll get to Mikey, and we'll get to the Romero family. That is a plus family, just top to bottom, the entire family, entire crew. I want to let's creep into the draft stuff a little bit. Going back to 2017, 2018, 2019, wherever you want to start, is there a guy from any one of those drafts that sticks out as just kind of like, I have an unbridled love of this player, and nobody knows who they are, but they're going to be a star?
Okay, well, that's okay. So like, I will say that 2020, the 2020 draft, I mean, okay, 17, 18, 19, like obviously I was into it, but 2020, because COVID hits, there's no baseball, the baseball's over. And I'm like, well, okay, I got nothing else to do. Like, I'm just going to build my own freaking board, put everything in there, just go crazy. And so for the last, 3, including, this will be the third one. That's when I've gotten like super into it. Putting all the rankings from all the sites, keeping all kinds of stuff. Like that's because I was like, all right, that April, it was like, what the hell else am I going to do? Like I might as well like learn this and do that. So I'm thinking back to 2020, because that was when it was like really, and I've gotten much more thorough the last couple of years, but just looking at obviously it was a shortened draft. So, it's not like it was too deep, and I don't want to be like, oh, like this guy's definitely going to be incredible. But I love Petey Halpin. I don't know. That's like a really random one. I just like was super into Petey Halpin.
We can all relate some way. We can all relate to Petey Halpin.
I'm just like pulling up and looking back at like who were the ones that I was like going crazy about. Like you know what? Trevor Hauer I was also really in on, and so I was excited to see him killing it this year. And then obviously a big part of the trade. Then there are ones that just like don't even. Like I like convinced myself that like Jackson Leith was going to be awesome. Like yeah. So like there have definitely been some whiffs.
Deep cut.
Kalai Rosario. There's another high school guy.
I saw a lot of him down here. He's
okay. Give me some. What do we got? Am I crazy?
Hit, and he hits the ball hard. I'm really excited for him this year. I think he'll find his way to the low A team. So I live right next to the Twins complex, so I get to see a lot of these guys.
Well, there you go. So. And then I don't know, the last, like, again, this year I'm still like, I know I mentioned Mikey Romero, but I'm not, it's still very early for me to like pick my favorite guys for this year. I don't know. Again, like there's so many dudes. Like, here's another one that's like, this one's definitely huge bust potential. but Barron Radcliffe. I mean, come on.
Oh, I got to see Barron too.
Yeah,
he's a lot of fun though. Like that's the dude you root for to to do well. You're like, oh
yeah,
if he hits, like it's gonna be so much fun.
For sure.
They might have to redesign the baseball again when Barron Radcliffe starts busting through those.
Yeah, so we could go through like last year. Ryan Spikes, I really like. That's one I was into. I feel like it's easier to like the hitters. Some of the pitchers have already proven me wrong. So it's a lot easier.
Funny story about Ryan Spikes. We had him on last year just to, we do these twice a week draft shows, getting guys on, getting them noticed. And Ryan was super excited to join us. I'm really excited to get Ryan on the show. Great kids, tons of enthusiasm. He's the only kid to ever come onto the show holding his phone driving.
Oh, that is both like I respect it and bad. Don't do that, young man.
So we told him to hang up and we recorded 25 minutes later, but man, I love the intensity. I love the want.
He was ready to go. He wasn't going to miss it.
He wasn't going to miss it, man.
I will say this. I don't want to sound like this is a humble brag just because like I'm friends with baseball players. Baseball players do love FaceTiming while driving, which is not good. But he's not alone. I'm just going to say that. Okay.
It's a type.
It is definitely a type. But shouts out Ryan Spikes. And when the Rays took him, I only felt better.
There you go. What spurred when you posted last year the what was the scorecard or like the mock draft grade? Everyone's mock. And you took like drafts. 8 different sites, and you were like, who mocks? Like, who is the mock? Where did that come from?
Right. So again, like with these spreadsheets that I have, like I'm just like, what can I track? Like honestly, like what can I track? And I know there's some other people that are like this because it's just like, look at it. I'm lucky enough to do this for a living. I got time to do it. Like, let's do it. Let's learn. Let's put information together and let's learn something. The mock report card is silly because it's so flawed because people are changing them last minute. And it's like, then people say, oh, but see, I got it right on the one before. But it's like, so for me, I know people look at that and they'll be like, oh, see, he says that Kyle sucks or whatever. Like, that's not the point. Like, to me, it's just fun. And honestly, like some of the, like Callis and Kylie, whatever, like they're competing, right? You guys are now getting into this and sourcing stuff and whatever. And like, but let's not take it so seriously. Like, I mean, maybe that's on me to like throw something like that out there and then be like, guys, relax. But like, for me, it's just like, hey, like I'm keeping track of this because like, I'm already keeping track of this because it's just interesting. It's like, oh, because if I can look at something and I can say, hey, the last 10 mocks across 7 sites had this guy going this where, like because as you guys have certainly learned over the last few years, some teams are terrible at keeping their secrets. And some teams, you do know exactly who they're going to draft, right? Like the Colson Montgomery White Sox thing was like, we knew it in March. And it was like, but then other teams are just totally out of nowhere, right? Like no one saw the Mazzucato thing coming, right? So like, stuff like that. But to me, that's just fun. And to me, it's just like, okay, I can see the patterns. I can see, oh, so-and-so's mocked here. If I like, highlight the guy's name, I can see, oh, he's been mocked between 13 to 18, every mock for the last month. Like that's where he's probably going, and that's just helpful for me to know. And that's just like interesting. But in terms of comparing them, like that is just me stirring shit up. I'm just like, this is funny. Whatever.
Also, it's just such an exercise in futility. Like, I don't think anyone got 3 of the first 5 picks. I don't think anyone got 5 of the first 10.
Now. I haven't looked.
What was the best site? Like 7 out of 30.
I think it was like 7. I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, we all source, but it's chaos.
Yeah, it just takes one strange pick to like knock the dominoes all down.
As soon as the Orioles hit the board, it's gone.
Well, and then right, so there's that, and then it's like, but I had him taking that guy in the comp round. It's like, okay, whatever. Like again, like this is not a real thing. Like we're all just doing our best. This is all very goofy. But you guys know about the legendary Callis mock, right?
No.
Oh, Oh my God. Okay, so
now
I'm forgetting the specifics, but I want to say it was 2004. I'm gonna have to ask Jim. He mocked the first like 26 correctly or something. But again, it's a sign of the times too, because like deals were even more done, and it was like and Jim's the best. So, but he has like a legendary Baseball America mock that was like the first 20 something were right or something, and it was like
that's amazing. I need to go find that.
Yeah. I'm botching the details, but that one is up. But so and I always make fun of him. I'm like, oh, you'll never get back to your
you peaked, Jim.
You peaked so early. No, but Jim still got it. Don't
oh yeah, man. He's the GOAT. We
brought
him on several times. Yeah, we brought him on several times. He's the shining star, if you will.
Yeah. And but let me tell you, because I just love talking, like he loves this stuff. Like, duh, right? But he's been doing it for so long, and like he can just talk forever. And I just, I admire him, and I'm very lucky to call him a friend.
When we had him on the show, he said, you can just tell talking to him, he just eats it up. I mean, he eats, sleeps, breathes it. And he goes, he was talking to Carlos, and he goes, hey, Carlos, I got to tell you, I absolutely hate writing that handbook. He's like, it's the one thing I absolutely hate about this job. I hated that handbook. I did 14 of them. I hated it every year. And I was like, wow, he's human.
He is, but he did it, and he's still going at it. He's still grinding, and he's still, I love Jim.
Content, man. It's at the end of the day, it's content.
It is. It all is. It all is. But yeah. Anyway,
Drake, what you got, man?
Some draft origins.
Definitely. Yo, let's dive into a little bit of LIDOM. So I noticed in the rookie draft this year, which I'm going to ask you to walk us through because I've never seen that, and I think it's really interesting. But I got to see a ton of these guys that were drafted. Johan Rojas, Ellie De La Cruz, who's very near and dear to my heart, Jason Dominguez, Marco Luciano. Can you walk us through that? Because this sounds like a real good time.
Yeah. So this is actually, I want to pull up this draft that you're talking about, because I know they have a lot of different drafts, because they have okay, here we go. Okay, because they got the round robin draft, and they go I'm just pulling up on the
drafts are fun, so I think they know what they're doing.
Exactly. That's absolutely correct. But yeah, I mean, so just to give you a general background, the way that the draft works in LIDOM is players are eligible once they play in full season ball. So that's when you become eligible for the rookie draft. And there's 6 teams in the Dominican Winter League. And so they draft them. And that's the thing, right? So like you will see top prospects go very high, right? Wander and, some of those guys you name. But it is a very delicate balance, because the challenge of Winter League is, are the teams going to let this guy play? And so if they're too good, or they're a certain kind of player, and this is why pitchers are almost never being taken, it's nice to pick Julio Rodriguez, because if he gets hurt and he needs to play for you for, he needs to get at bats, he's on your team, right? And that's why these guys still get picked at the top. But some of these guys will never, ever play, right? Juan Soto, Licey picked Juan Soto, I think, in the first round or whatever. He's never going to play for them. I mean, he will in like 15 years, but there's no way he's going to play for them anytime soon, because he's too good, right? So it's kind of finding that balance of the guys kind of in the middle. Otto Lopez is a good example of a guy who's like he's a prospect, but he's not too good, but the team's like, don't go down there and get hurt. Like, go play. Great. Okay, cool. I know Escogido, we're good friends with the GM, Jose Gomez. They took Yainer Diaz, the catcher, very high, who got traded. It was Cleveland, Houston, because catchers are just really, really, really hard to find in this league. And so he was really high, even though he got picked higher than some of the other picks. Right, Jason Dominguez. I think Jason Dominguez was like a 3rd or 4th round pick, because it's like, why are the Yankees going to let him play? Plus, the league is so veteran, heavy, that those guys, it's hard to succeed in these leagues. Like Jason Dominguez would probably suck if he played, anytime soon, right? And that's why Julio having the success he did last winter, Wander Franco also shows how good they are, right? Because these are adults. I mean, these are not just older, major league veterans, but just like bigger, older, stronger dudes. And that's why the drafts, as fun as it is to look at the list of all the prospects, it's a weird mix. It's a really weird balance of why you're taking them. But then you have their rights essentially forever. So, I mean, guys get traded all the time, and there's all kinds of funky transactions in the Winter League.
They trade for Juan Soto's rights for 10 years down the road.
Well, that's the thing,
I'm
right?
into that.
Well, okay, so like Albert Pujols, for example, he was technically on Gigantes. Gigantes drafted his right 20 years ago. And then this year, when he finally wants to play, he was like, I don't want to play for Gigantes, so trade me. And what are they going to tell Albert Pujols no? So they like traded him to Escondido so he could play more in the Capitol. But there's so many weird dynamics. Like, I understand it is very easy to like look at the sexy names that are getting picked. And in terms of prospect stuff, like you guys are focused on, like, sure, maybe Noelvi Marte gets a couple at bats here or there, right? But it's pretty rare to see top prospects getting real run. You really, like Robert Poisson, who's, who knows how good he is, but he was barely got some time. Ronnie Mauricio is actually a good example of a guy who was getting a lot of playing time for Licey this year. And he was succeeding. And that was like, okay, cool. This is exciting, but it's a very veteran heavy league. So generally the younger guys, you're just not going to see them as much.
Yeah. It does seem like the younger Latin players that go down there and do get substantial time. Like I remember Julio going down there last year. Mm-hmm. He just said it turned his game into another gear because he realized how important it is. We're not talking about the Arizona Fall League here. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a baseball league that is everything to this culture. Yeah. And like Noelvi Marte went down there, and I think Seattle, he even played so many innings this year. I think Seattle almost had a game cap on him. Like, hey, you can have him. You only want him playing like twice a week kind of thing. Right. And he went down there and he just said, the fans reacting to you. You go to Modesto, you go to, Clinton, Arkansas, Everett, wherever you go. It doesn't matter what you do. They're going to cheer for you. You go down there, it's game time. It's time to hit. It's time to field. It's time to play. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter your age. So it's a different beast, man. It's a different animal.
Yeah. Like I'm like, this is, I think I tweeted about this at the time, but I'm now I have the draft board up from last year. And so Marco Luciano going first, right? Okay, great. Noelvi Marte, it says Yonder Diaz third, Canario, Orelvis Martinez, Poisson, Valera, great. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, we got all these great prospects. And then Gigantes took a reliever named Wendell Floranus. I don't even know. This dude was like in Mexico. Like he might have been like, I don't know how old this guy is. Let's see. Oh, right. He's from Curacao, but he was like eligible in the rookie draft, whatever. So he was like 26-year-old reliever. He was the pick before Jason Dominguez. So like that's the kind of dynamics that you're working with because it's just a very unusual exercise to be drafted.
That's a win now pick. That's a win now pick.
That's a win now.
Yeah. It's just a first year player type thing. Right. Yeah, so the whole thing's just fantasy.
Well said.
Shifting back to the draft, we don't want to keep you too long. We'll kind of end on a couple more questions here. New CBA. Don't want to get too deep into it because I think it can get sticky. It's messy. But the draft is suddenly kind of a big part of it. It's a big piece of it for reasons I don't truly understand right now because I don't think the draft is a huge priority for players. It's kind of a bigger priority for the league and competitive balance. Out of the things that are being talked about, whether that be the lottery, whether that be all of the different factors, trading picks, is there something that you think the draft could really use right now in terms of a little bit of a jolt of life in this new CBA?
Well, I think the first thing you said is really important. I was thinking about this today with the reports about whatever nonsense free agent or like if you don't manipulate service time, then you get a bonus draft pick. But it's like, why would the players care about that literally at all? And even if you're a GM, like also it was like if they play the whole year and get MVP votes, it's like, okay, but like Wander Franco got Rookie of the Year votes and he didn't play the whole year. Like you could still, whatever. So that's silly. And I don't understand. Tying it together is weird because this is a great example of, this is true with just CBA stuff in regards to minor leagues. It's like, who are the people negotiating and who are they negotiating for? And they are going to dictate things involving people that don't affect them. So that's really challenging. As for like what needs to be changed, I honestly haven't given that much thought as to what I would like to see changing. The easy one that I think is a no-brainer is the trading picks. And I think that would be fascinating. And I think just obviously from a spectator standpoint, like I don't know how, I'm sure teams want it, but are also probably scared of it because how do you like valuing? I know we all like to pretend that we know what a draft pick is worth, but like we don't until teams are trading for it. Like we don't, right? And so I think it would be a fascinating early landscape of understanding like, oh, like, you know, the 75th overall pick. And by the way, we should point out that you can trade draft picks, just very, very specific ones, right? We know the Mariners traded for a pick, right?
Yeah, why is that allowed? Why can you trade competitive balance picks? It's like 8% of the draft.
Makes no sense. But to me, that's enough of a thing that's like, yeah, just put this in there. This is great. The problem is that players don't care about that. And I don't like I don't know who's going to be negotiating that. But so it's hard to say how likely it is, but I would like to see it. And I would like to see that more than the lottery. I'm fine if they do a lottery. I understand it. And I think that's also fine. And I think that so much of that stuff and bonus pool stuff and like, you know, it's a slippery. I don't know. I know some people are saying, you know, screw the draft. You know, it should just be free agency. I know the extreme versions of that, and I respect those takes too. I obviously don't think that's happening anytime soon, especially since we're going in the other direction in the international market. So it seems very unlikely. But as it stands, you know, in terms of tanking and all this stuff, like it's hard. It's obviously not that. I don't have to explain to you guys. It's just not the same as other sports. And while teams are clearly doing it, and it probably would be good to have teams not losing this much, it's probably all still going to exist to some degree. So I would be fine with lotteries. I have no issue with that. And I would imagine too that like the players would say, sure, like if we get this, then take the lottery, because what do they care about? They want to be good too. They don't want to be on shit teams. So
none of these players that are drafted are going to come around when most of these guys are still playing.
In a lot of cases,
it's not like football where you've got a new quarterback coming.
Right, that's also true. That's also true. So,
well, yeah, if we draft a high school kid, we're going to wait 6 years.
Like, so I would be fine with it. I think if that is an argument for competitive balance and get it, like I'm cool with that. I just haven't thought that much about the specifics because like to me, like if you're not changing the actual bonus pool system and it's more about just the order, I think that's totally fine. If we're getting into how you actually changing the system and how much money you can spend, like that's a way longer conversation that, frankly, I don't want to have right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I will say, just as a cherry on top, I do think a salary floor for teams would iron out a lot of these problems, or at least get us closer to a resolution. But I don't think we're anywhere close to getting that. So, Joe, I'll leave you with the last question here. It can be surrounding Mikey Romero and the Romero family. It can be whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely dive into, you know, your love for the Romero family if you'd like. But I'd also like to know what you guys have on tap for this year. Like, what can we look forward to from Cèspedes Barbecue?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, right now, you know, we've been in kind of a holding pattern. Our pod's been on a hiatus for a little bit, our pod at the Ringer, but still cranking out stuff at Fox Sports. We got some very, very fun stuff coming in the next couple of weeks that I don't want to quite reveal yet, at least not while we're recording, but we have some fun projects that are certainly ones that you can only pursue because there's a lockout. So I'll put it that way. We do have some bigger things there. As for the season, yeah, I mean, I want to start thinking about opening day, but honestly, I'm not, because we know who knows when it's going to happen. And frankly, like I am currently focused entirely on Winter League. Like that's what I'm watching right here. And I'm excited for college ball to start. And so that's really what I'm dreading, is like the first 2 weeks of February between end of winter ball and start of college ball. Because what we always say is, you know, like there's baseball to watch if you want it, right? But first 2 weeks of February, unless you are lucky, you, Joe, get to go down to Florida, unless you're living near some JUCOs in Florida or Texas, it is hard to watch baseball. Yeah. And so for me, that's the time where I'm going to be a little bit sad, but it's all good once college starts. Cause again, like negotiations are going to get ugly in February, whatever, but once college picks up, like I'm good. Softball too. And I'll just mention too, softball, like I'm super duper into softball too. A lot of that is, again, like I mentioned, Sydney and Sierra Romero. If you don't know them, two of the best, you know, players of the last 10 years, older sisters of Mikey. That's, you know, part of why I'm just unabashedly a fan of Mikey. Also, I think he's good at baseball, but mostly just sisters. So I'm,
he's got a younger sister on the way that is monster.
I didn't even know that.
She's incredibly
Didn't even know
talented.
there's a fourth one. So
the Romero train does not stop.
Yeah, so that's great to know. Love to hear that. Obviously, why I'm number one fan, but apparently not number one most knowledgeable fan. So I should work on that.
Hey, I'm not taking the medal from you. This is your medal. I've had Mikey on the show.
Yes, I'll have to go back. I have watched a lot of your draft show interviews. I have to go back and watch that one. But yeah, so that's generally what's going on. But like I said, I'm still building my 2022 boards. I've appreciated all the work that you guys have done. So keep it up, and thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I want to make one pitch to you really quick before we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fox Sports pitch.
Okay.
StatCast is big, right? And nobody knows how fast 20 miles an hour is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I pitch. We stick a Jordan Schusterman graphic in center field and compare routes to the ball to what it would look like you running in the field.
Love that. I will say I was pretty good in the center at age 12. So
let's use age 12 Jordan Schusterman.
Age 12 Jordan I actually like more than now. And so because of that, I see what you're getting at. Because people say, "Oh, that guy's so slow." It's like, no, he would smoke you. Just let's be real. Like, you are not faster.
We got to make content more relatable.
No, I know it's true. It's true. I do think, and I love the StatCast stuff is good. I think that is the next step, is understanding what is good. And by the way, I would also, here's a pitch to you, a challenge to you, Joe Doyle and Joe Drake, because it's relevant to both of your jobs. But who am I? You're pitching me. I'll pitch you. Okay. The thing is that you got StatCast right. So we say, oh, what the hell is fast, right? Is this fast? What does this mean, right? Exit velo, we're starting to understand. 95, good. 100, good. 120, holy shit, Giancarlo Stanton, right? Okay. The next challenge is understanding that with all the dorky pitch data stuff. And you guys have done a very good job of presenting it and sourcing it and sharing it, right? But I'm still seeing, 15 inches, vertical break. Is that good? I need to know. And again, this is on me, this is on everybody, but there needs to be what is of the most basic versions of these things? What is good? Because we've gotten there with spin rate. 3,000, good, cool. 2,500, good, right? But we're going to keep getting more. The more technology we get in this game, Hawkeye, Rhapsody, all this stuff that becomes more, and that's great. I support it. I'm all for it, right? But if the casual fan's going to take it in and be like, oh, that's good, especially now as we're getting it for amateur players, we got to know what the baseline is. And that's hard. That's a long form of education. That would be my challenge. And I don't know what that looks like. Again, this is why I'm throwing it to you. This is a great example. I'm like, you do it. You do it. Make it better. Make it.
I don't have time.
Make it easier for me. But I'm just saying, that would be and I'm not saying you're doing a bad job of it, because it's hard. It's just, but that's a great barrier of entry thing that is and the reason I'm mentioning it is because it's coming really fast. Suddenly these terms are just being thrown around in ways that even for me, I'm like, oh damn, I gotta brush up. It's exciting. It's good for baseball, but that's where I'm like, let's make sure we know what we're talking about. It
seems like as an industry, we have started to skip over the inches of break, inches of ride, and we've just been like, let's expose the public to seam shifted wake and gyro spin. And I'm just like, wait, hold on. Yeah. Nobody understands the other stuff yet.
Right, exactly. And I'm like, I'm glad that you're doing it, but don't pretend like everyone else is up to your whatever, math degree. I love, do it, but just understand what you're working with, right? And that's the difference. It's not like, I don't want to hear it. I want to hear it, but just understand that it's not that easy for the people with, normal brains. So anyway, that's just a random thought that's
good. We'll get there. We're going to get there. And graphics and things like that are going to help a lot. So.
For sure.
Hey man, Jordan, thank you so much for jumping on the show with us. Half of Cèspedes Family BBQ. It's been a pleasure, man. Love to have you on in the future, but go kick ass this year, man. If we have baseball.
Appreciate you guys. Absolutely. Keep up the good work. Prospects Live. I look forward to continuing to read. And if you ever need anything, let me know.
All right, man. We'll make it as complex as we can.
Please do.